Users of Reddit, what does the richest person you know do for a living? Story number 1. They're both retired. One was an exec at an oil company from the 80s through the 00s, and the other was just a random factory worker. But his late wife worked in tech in the 90s and made some phenomenal investments. She basically went all in on Apple in the 90s and sat on it until she passed away in the early 10s and he cashed out. The oil uncle on my mom's side bought a farm where he rescues dogs, and the other uncle on my dad's side bought a cabin in the mountains where he and his new girlfriend just go on hikes every day based on the photos he posts to Facebook. Story number 2. The richest people I personally know all have one thing in common, and I didn't realize it until I just wrote out this list. They're all married to people from their same socioeconomic status, and thus they have a multiplying effect on their income. One person making $250,000 annually in Chicago is doing good for themselves, but may still have some debt. Two people making $500,000 combined are doing great and probably have no debt. These are the richest people I know. Most of them I know because I taught their children. A private pilot for a hedge fund manager and his wife, who is a project manager for a major company. A public school principal and his wife, a public school teacher. Yes, believe it or not, public school employees, particularly the administrators in Chicago, make a lot of money. A husband and wife team who own a small chain of stores. The CFO of a major Chicago-based corporation. Her husband actually quit his job as a construction manager in order to become a domestic engineer. That means stay-at-home dad. A wife who owns her own wedding planning business and her husband who owns a sheet metal fabrication business. A retired couple that sold their business-to-business electronics business for millions upon retirement. This couple donated hundreds of thousands of dollars for new tech at a school I taught at once because their granddaughter went there. Rather than buy her a laptop, they bought laptops for all of the students. A couple that buys foreclosed houses, fixes them up, and rents them out. So it's not flipping them because they don't sell them. The husband was a construction foreman who did this as a hobby and then over time started doing it full-time. His wife manages their business, finds the houses to buy, and does the interior design. He manages the actual construction and maintenance on the places they own. A man who owns a stationery supply company that does business with several school districts in the area. I won't lie. I think this guy has some shady business dealings. Have you ever heard of businesses that overcharge the government for things, then kick back some of that money to the politicians who are in charge of buying those things? I think this guy does a lot of that. It's the Chicago way. Story number 3. I went to a wedding in the south of France and hit it off with a guy there. One of the most eccentric and fun people I've ever met. We changed seats to sit next to each other for the dinner, and by the time we had finished our starters, he had booked flights for him and his partner to come and visit me in London from Oslo where he lives. He turned out to be my richest friend. This is his professional timeline. An average student, he came to the UK and studied finance at a university in Sunderland and worked at bars in the city to pay for himself, e.g. not from a wealthy family. He worked in London in private banking, advising and selling finance products to wealthy people, moved back to Norway, and ended up setting up his own brokering business, worked his backside off for around 5 years and ended up selling that business, and netting himself around $3 million, invested that in property in Oslo, and found a niche way to turn 1 and 2 bedroom apartments into 3 and 4 bedrooms. Property in Oslo boomed, and he doubled, trebled his money. Whilst doing all this, he continued to work in finance-related roles 9-5, and was even CEO of a pizza factory at one point, helping to turn the business around. He sold all his Oslo property at the top of the market and invested in 10 apartments in Marbella, and moved into new build projects in Norway, buying land and applying for planning permission. His latest project is to build 26 houses, still working in finance BTW. So what does he do on the surface of it, finance and property? But what is more interesting is how he does it. Always looking for a niche. He saw a gap in brokerages in Norway and set that up, saw a niche with rental in Oslo and nailed that. Ugly makes money. The apartments in Marbella and the ones he had in Oslo are not the prettiest, and he packs people in. But they are well designed, nicely furnished, well maintained, and in decent locations. Same for his brokerage business and finance roles. Always pushes himself. He has continually doubled down and stretched himself. Story number 4. I know a lot of very wealthy to extremely wealthy people. Here are a few that come to mind because I've been with them in the past week or so. One owns a sign company, not putting signs on businesses, but putting billboards up across the country. He also makes the blue signs that you see on the highway that tell you there are restaurants, gas, or lodging at the next exit. I think he makes over $1 million a month for his salary. One that I saw tonight buys large ranches, often a few a year. He pays cash, fixes them up, and resells them for a nice profit. He's probably worth $30 to $40 million. Another friend buys television advertising time. He buys huge amounts to ad time and gets a discount. Then he sells that time at a discount to his current clients. Some of his clients spend $500K a month with him. I'm not sure what his net worth is, but he owns a 23,000 custom home. Another used to own pawn stores and then started buying real estate. It's the same thing I did, but he has about a 12-year head start on me. His net worth is around $75 million. Another invests in huge apartments complexes, often a few a year. He fixes them up and resells them for a nice profit. I would guess that he's worth close to $750 million. But the wealthiest person I know owns a successful investment fund. The last I heard, his salary was $200 million annually. He's also one of the most humble, unassuming, and generous men that you would ever hope to meet. For that matter, all of these men are absolutely wonderful people. The kind of people that you would want to be around just to learn more from. Most are quiet about their deals and their money. I was invited on a trip and we flew in one of their private jets last week. I've known him for years. I never knew that he owned a stunningly beautiful Citation Sovereign jet airplane. How does that never come up in any of our conversations? He mentioned that he's flying here or there, but I thought that he flew like me, on Southwest Airlines. If they weren't all such good friends, I wouldn't have a clue what any of them did, what they were worth, or in some cases that they had any money at all. The two most wealthy both drive older, unpretentious vehicles. Story number 5. Oh boy, this is a tough one. My job puts me into personal relationships with a lot of wealthy people on a daily basis. The wealthiest, actually. CEOs of the largest financial institutions, or MNCs, politicians, etc. I can sum them up as a pile of narcissistic assholes who surround themselves with yes men. Hardly are they happy with any service offered, and they tip awful. The happiest rich people I've met are generally entrepreneurs who sold their interests and retired happy. They spend time with their family, have hobbies, and don't worry about the day-to-day struggle of financial hardship. They tend to be the most generous as well. Don't aim for billions and be that asshole. Aim for an early retirement, a paid-off house, and smart investments. Then you can spend time on things you actually want to do.